Okay,
Yeah. I know.
so ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin. Finish their final thought, and we're gonna call to order the February 10th, 2026 Ithaca City School District Board of Education voting meeting. And our first item on the agenda after call to order is a motion to enter executive session. Mr. Cratwise.
Yes, I move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussions regarding proposed pending or current litigation, collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
Second. So moved. Seconded by Mr. Shipman. All in favor? Please no discussion. We'll be back around 6:30, I believe. Is that hoping to come back a little early? It's good. Okay. Great. Is 6:45 and resume our public session. So first up is section item 3.1, modification of agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we table both the 10.2 and 10.3, the enrollment study and the RFP strategic planning, both because of the weather, freezing rain, and also to make sure that our board president, who is under the weather, can be here to engage in that conversation.
So moved by Ms. Coyle. Is there a second for discussion?
Second.
Second with Ms. Workman. So discussion?
I don't think we should postpone that because we have 8 of the 9, I always have to recount. 8 of the 9 board members, and we don't know what the future board meetings will have, as well as we said we would start discussion early February. So this is a continuous discussion item. It's not making any decisions for tonight, so we should open up the discussion because I do believe from some of the discussion points that we're going to have, not that I spoke to any of my board colleagues, but there might be some back and forth with administration on what further information we need. Part 2 of who knows how many parts of this discussion. And that's for the enrollment study. And you said the strategic planning.
RFP.
Yeah, the RFP. Yeah. I think we need to postpone.
Other thoughts? No one else? Any thoughts on that? I would just say, I'll just apologize. Karen, I really hear those points. The circumstances tonight were that I got a very short notice right before the meeting that there was going to be a change and we'd be here tonight, and that our board president was under the weather and we wish him speedy recovery. And the very short notice 2 pieces of information I got are that the board president wished to be here during that discussion and asked us to table it. And that I've also heard from the superintendent and others about concerned about the weather tonight and trying to get people home sooner rather than later. So very much respecting your point on process, which I think is correct. And my personal preference would be to yield to the information that I received, but albeit recognizing I've received it very late, I could be incorrect. That's just my own problem. So should we call a question if there's no?
Can we just get clarification from Dr. Brown? You concerns on the weather?
Looks like we're gonna be okay on the weather the rest of the time, but that's changing every hour too. But right now.
I'll just quit to add on to it. Yes, add on a couple of things from that. From Sean's email, both he is not here. He also, I just want to name, like, you know, he didn't say like, don't do it. He said he would understand, if we needed to move forward. So I just wanted to make sure I captured that.
Oh, I can just switch to the vote. Okay, so all in favor of Ms. Coyle's modification? The two in favor, all opposed? All right, well, I can't, how many answers have, that's more than two, so, all right, the agenda will remain unchanged. Okay, so we move on to the consent agenda. No, sorry, delegations. We move on to section 4, your delegations. So first up is public comment. We do you have anything on the side of public
We
comment?
have one, Washington Vera.
You're sitting here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Joaquin Lira. Thank you for having me speak here, my board and Dr. Brown. I'm here to strongly and seriously ask you to consider a very wonderful mentor program that I am part of and that I am on the advisory board for. I've had the handouts going to all of you. This program was going very strong at Boynton Middle School just before the pandemic. It's now going strong at the Southside Community Center. We would like to start it up again here at Boynton and at Ithaca High School, but we seem to have been hitting a stone wall. And all we want to do is we want to sit down with someone who has some district authority and have them listen to our presentation and then ask any questions and tell us about any concerns, any fears or rumors they may have, so we can carefully explain what the program is all about. Our program coordinator is Susie Kosaks. She has a long, very distinguished resume. She has a Master of Science in education. She's been a counselor at Boynton, a school counselor. She's also been a physical ed teacher at Syracuse Inner Schools and at Jamesville DeWitt. I really strongly feel this is a great mentor program for our school district. My credentials, I work at Ithaca High School in the library. I've been there 14 years. Before that, I was security with Danny Wells, alias Boone, at the high school for many, many years. Also, I have a bachelor's degree in cultural arts. I have been on the school board at Homer School Board from 2013 through 2016. And we're trying to save our elementary school in Truxton. We weren't able to save it, but we were able to go another way, and we have it going strong now for several years, and it's now kindergarten to 9th grade to 6th grade. I've also was chosen by the class of 2012 at Ithaca High School as the commencement speaker at Ithaca College when the activity center was first inaugurated. I'm board president of my church, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Portland. And I think that with our mentors and my experience and Susie Kozak's experience, I ask you to seriously consider this wonderful mentor program. We don't consider ourselves white saviors. We consider ourselves very serious educators that have a very good program that we want to put together to help those students. Thank you.
Yeah. We do have one addition to public comment. We have a virtual.
Christian, you're gonna have to promote them to channels.
She promotes. She's on.
Okay, great. We have Nancy Brown.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I came tonight to make a very I'm sorry. Let me introduce myself. I'm Nancy Braun. I am a kindergarten teacher, have been for the last 11 years at ICSD and have been in early childhood for over 20 years in my career. And I came tonight to make a very concrete and actionable request of the board, but also to couch my ask in a larger context. My concrete request is that the Board of Education task the ICSD administration in collaboration with ITA to bring our district into compliance with New York State requirements for physical education instruction for kindergarten through fifth graders. New York requires that students in K through 3 get daily instruction in PE, but currently our students only have PE class 2 or 3 times a week. Depending on the week, we alternate. We are also underserving all of our elementary students K through 5 in the number of minutes of instruction. The state mandates 120 minutes per week, whereas our students get an average of 100 minutes per week. So my top 4 reasons to bring us into compliance. Number 1 is following the law. Number 2, physical health. We know that being active builds strength, stamina, coordination, and boosts the immune system. 3 is mental well-being. We know that physical activity releases all the positive brain chemicals, the ones that regulate emotions and improve focus and attention, and that social skills are readily embedded in gross motor games. And 4 is, of course, joy. Kids love to play games, move their bodies, and engage in healthy competition. And if this were not true, we would not elect to create the myriad athletic options we have for our 6th through 12th graders, nor devote so many financial resources to them, like an entire department with 2 administrators, dozens of coaches, transportation, fields, gymnasiums, bleachers, equipment, hall of fame, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for all of these reasons, I ask that we strive for equity in our provision of physical education for all our students across the K through 12 age spectrum. And now the context of this request. We're at a pivotal moment in ICSD history. We've been deeply examining and updating our approach to curriculum in the last 5 years. We've made a collective bargaining agreement with ITA that paves the way for strengthening our teaching and learning through the length and structure of our teaching and learning day. And we've undertaken a demographic study to possibly re-envision how and where we place students in our brick and mortar learning spaces. So I'm here to say that throughout these processes, the health and strength of our entire student body can and will be shaped by our thoughtful attention to how they begin their journeys at our universal access points, our pre-K and kindergarten programs. And I know I'm probably at time or over, but I've come to the board to ask about like what is our starting age, and there are many ways that I feel like our early childhood programs are sometimes or often an afterthought in programming. Like we start with like where elementary should be, and then we kind of try to shoehorn kindergartners and pre-Kers into that. And I want us to try to create structures that allow us to listen in to our early childhood educators and kind of flip that dynamic and say, what are the developmental needs that kids start with, and build from there through all of these, through all these ways that we're going to be pivoting as a district. So thank you for your time tonight and your service.
Another needs and time for board responses if there are.
Joaquin, you were security when I was in high school, and you were a legend. Like this guy would catch everyone trying to get out of school. Like Boone had his golf cart, but you'd be coming out of the bushes in the bank back there, just like bagging us as we were trying to get off campus. So it made me. I had a whole reaction when I realized who you were. No, like so much respect, and I appreciate that you're still part of the district and that you're still doing all these good things, trying to help kids. And I'm definitely excited to look more into this program. But yeah, that brought back some really good memories, like slow day and trying to get out of school. So
You ever Deeds?
what's that?
Did you ever go to Deeds?
No, but you did catch me leaving campus one time. You came running out of the bushes and we were booking and you got us. Yeah.
Thanks for the kind words.
No, I do appreciate you. You were literally a legend back then. Everyone was, I appreciate the memories, and I appreciate your dedication to the district, so thank you.
Thank you so much, yes.
While I never tried to lead canvas, I also recall you and Boone, and I also appreciate it. Fun fact also, the high school band Los Moriscos, wrote a song, the Boone Boone Tune. Back then, it was a great song, but I don't think you can find it online. Thank you for the work you've done and
I have some stories to tell about Dan, but I won't bring that up.
I'd love to hear those. I'll see you tomorrow.
Any other
I-
responses?
I want to thank Nancy for bringing that. I had no idea, and I hope maybe that's something we can address about the physical education requirements that we can address in curriculum maybe and see what's happening there.
I was curious, I'm correcting if this is inappropriate. Dr. Brennan, is it appropriate to ask you sort of like about elementary, like
We welcome an invitation to talk about this at our next meeting. I would love to put together a presentation of what we do, and how much we do, to clarify and to share accurately.
can we do that? We need to vote on that, or do we just do it?
I think we can just.
Are we talking about curriculum committee or the general?
I think this would be useful for the whole board.
An item for the next.
Okay, duly noted, we'll put it under agenda review. For upcoming meetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also echo that. So Nancy, thank you so much for coming. Nice to hear what you had to say in your well-spoken way. Yeah, I think we should talk about that also as well. Sounds like.
So I look forward to that discussion because I was wondering, did the minutes change due to no school or instructional time and things like that? So I look forward to that continued discussion.
And in order, just to clarify order, and then thinking here largely about the feedback that Sean shared like the last time around curriculum committee agendas. Personally, I would love for it to start at the board level so we can have some sort of shared understanding. So that if we are going to discuss in curriculum committee, we have a clear mandate or however we would call it from the board to know the scope of our work and who should involve. But I will hold off on it as an agenda item until we know more as before. Unless I get different thoughts from her. Other members.
So I agree.
It is in the queue for future meetings. If there's nothing further, then it's now time to turn to our student representatives.
Yeah.
You guys can choose your own order.
I got it. Yeah. So hi everyone, so there's not much I can talk about, but I just want to mention that student completed their first semester a few weeks ago with midterm exam, and yeah, very exciting for the winter break next week. So yeah.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. This past Friday, juniors and seniors had their annual winter formal at the Souther Hotel at Cornell, which is a fun experience. And tomorrow the IHS Chorale is going to both the middle schools to put on a little concert for them to try and recruit them to join the choir in the next years. It's always a fun thing that we get to do and share music with people who are going to be in high school in a couple years. Also, just to touch on the ex officio policy, I'm personally very happy about like the rotating policy to get to go to different committee meetings and like even getting to go to a policy meeting this past week. Like it's very helpful in seeing specific issues and like getting to work on that and connecting with other students. And I think that the mentoring program sounds good, or a good thing to look into. And then with the thing that Nancy brought up, it also sounds like a good thing to get and look into. I know that I would be upset if I did not have as much gym class time when I was in elementary school or now, but yeah.
Yeah. So last Saturday we had our annual STEM open house and we invited a bunch of people from the community, and we had our robot running around very happily. And there was also other Vex robots running around, and we also had some people from Cornell come down. I think the Society of Women Engineers and a lot of other STEM clubs in the high school, and it was very fun. And on that same Saturday, there was also the induction of like Hall of Fame athletes, and it was the first induction since 2018. Sorry. And yeah, that was pretty nice. So we had a very STEM focused on the same day as very athlete focused. Yeah.
So as Lily was talking about, Lily, Chan, and I went to the policy committee meeting last week. We went a little more in depth on the ex officio policy we've all been working on. We had a draft policy, and us IHS board reps and I believe the LACS board reps are pretty happy with that. I'm pretty happy with how that meeting went. We got to speak with a lot of student leaders and hear some valuable perspectives. So I was happy how that went. That's all I have.
Go ahead. Sorry. I have to check.
Okay, hi everybody, it's getting a bit warmer, always nice. Couple things I want to shout out, I went to the winter forum as well, really nice, it's in the Statler Ballroom, which again is very beautiful, had a lot of fun there, and the mentorship program, I've personally been the benefactor of several mentorship programs, and they can be life changing, especially at a young age to have somebody that even just set you straight and tell you what, this is simply not the thing to do. No, and those can really change the arc of your life. So I've personally been deep support of having those in our middle schools, in our high schools, in our elementary schools, wherever they feel they fit. It's officially PBAT season at LACS. We've already had several presentations in English and math. If you're not familiar, PBAT stands for Performance-Based Assessment Task. LACS does those in lieu of regents, except for the English regents. And we're able to do that as a member of the Performance Standards Consortium, mainly based out of New York City, but it includes us and the School Without Walls in Rochester, as we all do PBATs to assess ourselves, performance-based assessment task. We've also been trying out a new way of presenting PBATs in English and focusing on shifting towards a model that reflects our commitments to the process of like researching, writing, studying, thinking about what a PBAT is, that big project. I like to think of it as it's a thesis defense kind of thing, where you stand up and your teachers do kind of try to grill you on this work that you've done, and thinking about that process of how you get to that point beyond just the final product. That's been a lot of work recently we've done, especially in English. You'll probably be seeing some invites to attend some science, math, social studies PBATs coming up. I really invite you to attend. I've seen a lot of them and they're all really fun. Students pour a lot of time and energy into them, and they always end up super interesting. We've also experienced some staffing changes at LACS beginning second semester, and after February break, we've welcomed Olive, who is a new science teacher, Kayla, who is replacing Nina in the gym, Monica, our new speech teacher, Alexis, who is taking over for our nurse Maria, and Riley, who will be taking over our English and social studies teacher Aurora for the rest of the year. And I guess final thing, we had a science focused thing as well. Our middle school science Olympiad team went to the Penn State's Invitational for Science Olympiad, and they won. They won rocks and minerals. They got fourth place in disease detectives, kind of a figuring out diseases. I'm not sure, but it sounded cool. And they compete against 27 other teams. They're working to get towards the states in a couple of weeks, and they're having a great time. It's a really new program, and they're seeing a lot of success early on. So we're very proud of them.
All right. Okay, again with Infusion Week, on behalf of the Infusion Week Planning Committee, huge thanks to Emily and Todd for agreeing to take part in our March 4th panel. It will be so great to have you there. I've talked about it a lot, but I'm really excited for this event. And if anybody would like to come at any point in the week just to see us at it, please do. We'll have workshops on Tuesday afternoon and Thursday morning. And if anybody is curious, I can send you the full list once it's finalized. We're bringing lots of local guests. It's like shaping up to be something that I think is going to be really awesome. A few activist groups are coming in, someone from the Johnson, a couple of council members, and hopefully a salsa dancing workshop. Parents, students, and staff will also be leading some of the workshops. So yeah, anybody is invited. I think it's going to be really fun. And also food. We're gonna be working on the food. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna shamelessly go for some of the fundraising that Spanish Trip is doing. We're working so hard on getting all of this
money.
Oh, no.
And I printed way too many of these little things, so I'll just like pass out some of them. We're doing a parents' night out. So if you have kids, this would be fabulous. It's a babysitting night. And it is at the same time as the Valentine's dance, which is on the back of this. So yeah, pay us to look after your kids while you have like a fun night. And anybody else just come up for a flyer.
I did $2
Night
per
after
hour.
we were kids.
Someone to walk.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
Are we invited to the dance or is?
Feel free to fill
Or are we bringing our?
Yes, if you want, always use more chaperones.
babysitting, so
At the dance?
So you can go out and have fun with your significant other while your kids are at the dance.
Or is this babysitting for just in general? Both $5 and
We
$10
can also babysit in general, yeah. But this babysitting night is a specific event, yeah.
I don't know, I'm not part of this stuff.
Okay. Well, that sounds very exciting. Thank you.
Oh, and also real quick, shout out Karen Yearwood came to my PBAT last year, so that was pretty awesome. Okay, thank you.
So on that, no, oh, sorry, I'm not.
Is that, get everybody?
We keep going if you want.
I invite board responses.
So on that note, thank you, Emily. I would encourage my board colleagues to definitely, if you have the availability to participate on the PPAC at LACS, it's a good experience.
Something. I took my kids to the IHS STEM thing last week, and that was really fun over the weekend. I guess it was over the weekend. That was very cool, and I saw the robots going around in circles. I also have to just give a shout out to the science Olympiads. They were so cool and had like the most amazing Jeopardy thing on their computer, which taught so much, and I just loved it so much. And they were like super engaged. They were one of the only tables I walked up to, and they like immediately like came over and started engaging. So I was very, very impressed with them. They also were talking to teachers from DeWitt and are trying to like do some stuff to engage middle schoolers. So it was just really impressed by that group and learned a lot too. In terms of the ex officio policy, just as usual, just want to say thank you for your engagement, and also I was going to say this at the next policy committee meeting, but because most of you are here now, I would just want to say that we were really grateful, and to the rest of our board colleagues, it was a really, really neat committee meeting. We had like over 10 students here from several different student groups. We had board members from the Village of Ithaca. We had some of the superintendent's advisory committee folks, and we had several of our board reps. And it was just an incredible opportunity to actually be able to hear from students, to hear from students with diverse perspectives about the same policy, and also just really appreciated the engagement among students. A lot of it was like not even directly engaging with us, but kind of asking one another questions and follow-ups and trying to really kind of understand so that they could provide most valuable and meaningful feedback about the policy and how it could be improved or changed. And I want to give a shout out to those of you that were here. I think that it was also kind of a little unexpected. It was actually unexpected for me too. I did not expect that many students to be here. And I think that it was like put you guys in a bit of a tough spot, because I think that the purpose of it was to kind of talk about how to improve the role, and so could have been taken personally, I think, when it definitely was not the purpose, and just want to recognize that this is a role that we have had on the board for many, many years, and that you as new reps come in every year and are trying to like just kind of step into the shoes of the people before you, and don't have a lot of you don't have a manual to take over and start doing that work, or that much time to really create something totally different. So appreciated you kind of engaging in that way, being able to hear the perspectives without without it just visibly seeming like it was a very personal thing. And you've done enough things that kind of help us think about ways to improve it. So thank you for engaging in that conversation.
Are there any other thoughts? No? Okay. Then thank you very much. And we now move on to agenda item 5, the consent agenda.
I move to approve all consent agenda items listed in the consent agenda. Consideration of accounts, personnel reports, students, and minutes of previous meeting as presented.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Grantwise, Dr. Grantwise, seconded by Mr. Schifrin. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? All opposed? You abstain? So was that 7 yeses and 1 abstention? Okay. So moving on. You're now at Dr. Brown.
And thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Blaylock. I wish to use my time to just foreshadow another board presentation. I hope that will be on the agenda in the near future. State of the District address or State of the District conversation. Shout out to Lynn Lankowski, who's pulling all that data together that we continue to receive from last year, accountability conversations, and what's happening this year. So in the near future, we're going to talk about that. And just as FYI, last Friday, I and Miss Grover were at Enfield Elementary School. We were hosting the superintendents of my region who all met at Enfield. They did a bit, they walked around a little bit, but they were mainly there to be in the space with folks from state ed. We had some nice ed representatives. The assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, assistant commissioner was there virtually as well to hear about the successes and the things that are happening at Enfield. It's becoming a statewide story. The quick shifts in student achievement on the 3-8 test score. So this Stephen Anderson was there, Keith Harrington showed back up, Ms. Talcott came. So we talked about the multi-year process that's been underway there and across our district. And again, I anticipate more conversations. Shout out to Ms. Grover, who was there, talking about some of the things she's been leading currently and has been leading over the last few years. And again, to underscore the great work our educators are doing and the successes that are coming in, we will talk about this with the state of the district. Just today, we received some unembargoed graduation rate information, and I'm looking forward to a more comprehensive report on graduation rates, which is, I've always said, we want 100% graduation rates, and we want to honor and recognize the work that's been done to raise our achievement. Here, our 2025 4-year graduation rate is going to be 89.3%. That's 5.5 percentage points higher than even last year. That's the highest graduation rate we've had here in our school district for 9 years. And we will talk about specific membership groups when we do a more comprehensive report. But I think it's important to note that the highest graduation rate in 10 years for our Black students, that number is at 86.7%. That's well above the state average. So some things to celebrate and also recognize we have more work to do because I want 100% in some ways. And I know we've had that conversation here at this table before, but every young person being able to graduate from our school is important. But at the same time, recognizing significant achievement when it comes to that. Thank you for the opportunity to share and to foreshadow what's going to come next. Yeah.
First of all, thanks for sharing that exciting news. Appropriate to ask now, or should I wait for the presentation? Do you have like thoughts, reflections on like what's leading to the positive momentum with graduation rates, or is that getting ahead of the foreshadowing?
Not getting ahead, but I do wish to share and invite some folks who are doing much more work than even I to get to these kind of results. Everything from just good teaching and learning, the ways in which we engage young people, the ways in which we are increasing attendance, the ways in which you heard feedback, like you've heard so much already. So I would like to couch it in a more comprehensive approach and have the folks who are doing it every day come here, because it's not by accident. This is by design.
On an unrelated note, I'm just curious. I've received, I know like the student reps have spoken a few times about like transportation challenges at ACS, and then I guess I've heard buzz around like transportation challenges potentially in other areas. I know there's like both nationwide transportation challenges, but I was curious at some point, would you be amenable to sort of like, I'm curious to see data on sort of like either to help. I'm curious to see data on sort of like on-time transportation, like whether it's I'm just curious to know more about transportation.
Be absolutely clear, I serve at the pleasure of the board, so I'm amenable to any request from you for an agenda item or any data. And this conversation about transportation can be something we talk about as far as an agenda item and bring the folks in who are appointed and leading that work in addition to my thoughts and perspectives and the data. It will take some time to capture the fact. I'm not sure exactly what data you're asking for, but maybe you can share and we can share and bring that.
I'm gonna follow up and send you some details, and we'll put it back in another item in the queue for future meetings.
Sure. I will.
All right. All right, thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
So we now move on to item 10, school district business. First up is a nomination for representative to TST BOCES. Dr. Grantweiss, I always come back to you. You did a good job reading.
Thank you so much. I move to nominate Bradley Granger as the Ithaca City School District candidate to be placed on the ballot for the 2026 TST BOCES administration budget and member vote held on April 29th, 2026.
Second.
So moved by Dr. Grantweiss, seconded by Mr. Different. Is there any discussion?
I would just, for those who've been around for longer, I just love the little context. I'm assuming that that Mr. Granger has been doing this for a while and
he has. I would normally turn to Professor Bradwell. He's always the context guy. He's not here.
So much like our school board, right? TST BOCES has a school board. Brad Granger has been serving on it for a while and has been doing a great job. And, you know, much like this board, they need someone. And I mean, he's been voted in every year and I've heard absolutely no complaints.
I mean, I believe all the districts that comprise BOCES have 10 representatives.
Yes,
and,
so the process everywhere is for nominations or then okay.
Is it each district represents?
Each district has a representative and the board, that representative has to be approved by the representative board.
Right. So it's one representative per district.
Mr. Granger, he served on this board, if I'm not mistaken, multiple terms. If you didn't know who Mr. Granger was.
Feels like this might be his third. How many?
On this board, I'm somebody.
Yeah, but on this is, yeah.
Shared our finance, audit, multiple committees.
What's the process for becoming the nominee? Like, do you ask somebody and then they put it on? Like, how? I mean, obviously, we are putting it forward as a board. Specifically, me reading the motion, so we can say that I am fully responsible. No, but how do we come up with the person that we're going?
Because I've been about a long. I've talked. There's been multiple ways in which this has happened. One, we hope that the person who's in the role wants to continue. So, and that's been the number one app because it's a volunteer position and we have folks. So, and when we haven't had the person wanting to continue, there with the board officers with the board put out a call for anyone who's interested. And I've been here where it's taken some time to find someone who's interested to put that much time into another board. In this case, he's been on for a while, and I know the board officers. I reached out and asked if he had an interest in continuing, and he does. And so does the board up there wanting him to continue. His expertise is needed. He's a community treasure. If I can put my own personal spin.
And we all will get an invitation to TSC BOCES annual meeting where they vote and the other vacancies. And it's scheduled for April 29th. So you can save the date before you get the invitation and then you start.
I still appreciate everyone sharing the context, and if you're watching, thank you, Mr. Granger, for doing this work.
He took this.
As you are watching, thank you for that.
If I could just pile on, so we rarely are we presented with the opportunity like this to praise an individual, but I remember when I was considering running for this board, Dr. Brown, you recommended I get in touch with Brad, and I met with him before running, and then since being elected, I don't know, half a dozen times, and every time I meet with him, he's very generous with his time. He just wows me. He is an encyclopedia of school finance policy. And on the finances, he's repeatedly helped me understand the process, and he's just very, very generous with his time. I concur that he's a community treasure.
Yeah.
And we are lucky to have him represent us, on my view. So if there's no further comments, no? Further discussion, and call the question, all those in favor? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Moving on, we have a discussion about the enrollment study. So for the public, last meeting, we heard a presentation about the demographics of this district over the next 10 years from a team that came in from Cornell to do that. The punchline of the report was, the next 10 years, we expect, under different projections, we expect to see roughly 1,000 fewer students in this district than we have today. And that leads to the question of, how do we prepare this district best to have a smaller population? So the floor is open for discussion.
And that presentation was information resulting from an October or late fall RFP that we put out October 2024. So no decisions have been made, have to continually reiterate that, because sometimes people think that there are decisions being made. And no decisions will be made until like community involvement. So we said that we would have a discussion at the board at this meeting.
Yeah, I think Ms. Uri, I guess could just to go back. So the process was that we put out a request for proposals, RFP, and we received a number of bids. We selected Cornell as the most attractive bid, and they worked for roughly 6 months or so, and then came in and presented the information about the projected enrollment, and then also gave just some kind of ballpark numbers on what different scenarios could arise from that and what we think be the financial implications of different scenarios. And I just underscore what this Yearwood said, that the board has just received that information. We've taken no action on it, made no decisions. We are just simply absorbing the information and starting to evaluate.
I just feel like the discussion's a little premature, because I felt like we had some remaining questions and we're discussing something without being able to ask said questions about the study. Right, and the one question you had in particular about going back farther, and I know he said he had that information, so we're having this discussion without having more information. It feels a little premature. Do we have any more information?
No. And if there is a request from the board for us to contact them and ask for that additional information, please share, so we can reach out tomorrow.
This would be a good time to put on the record of what are the questions we have.
Jinx, I was gonna say this.
So I know one question I had from the last time, and I asked that because the RFP and which detailed the scope of work stated like 5, 10, 15 years. And why did we stop at 10 years? Like 10 years in the future? Because even when we look back 10 years, like the last 5 years led us back to COVID, right? I would have liked to look like going back 15 years and then look at future 15 years.
For just process wise of this, do I need to be? I'm sorry, I didn't even know I said that. I was gonna say, do I need to take notes? But everyone is taking notes. It's recorded. I am curious to know more about open enrollment. And maybe part of that is just a conversation for right now, because I know we have an open enrollment policy in the Facebook district. Have we always had that? What does that mean in terms of? I just have no concept of how many students are attending schools outside of their zone. What impact does that have on enrollment in certain schools? Does it disproportionately impact particular schools, particular demographics? So I just have a lot of question about that policy, the rationale behind it, and what the implications would be of, like, if that policy were to remain the same, to not exist, to be modified, how that might impact enrollment numbers that we saw. I don't know if there's an answer here. I feel like this actually might be more a question for this board and for Dr. Brown than for the Cornell folks, because they obviously aren't involved in our open enrollment policy.
That would be a significant policy shift that will impact numbers significantly. And the open enrollment policy does impact those enrollment patterns currently. So that would be another comprehensive conversation that could be led in at committee or board level.
So, I mean, I can take a stab at an answer to that. I did meet with the Cornell group a couple times outside of board meetings, and they also asked for input from the district on what to present. So I'd say one to Ms. Yearwood's comment. I think they can do objections 5, 10, 15. I think just for the brevity of the presentation, we settled on 10, but I think they can bring those numbers if we want to see them.
Yeah.
I think it's just a tweak in their model. They just changed 10 to 15, run it again. So we can do that. I believe the answer on open enrollment, and actually a related question I asked about LICS, is that open enrollment and LICS are not direct functions of demography, but more functions of policy. So the degree to which we do or do not have open enrollment, the degree to which we do or do not put students in or out of LCS is really independent of the number of children who live in the district. And I think that the charter of the Cornell committee was to tell us how many children will be living here. How we allocate those children to different programs is more a policy decision that the board chooses, and not something that Cornell would be able to inform us on. But correct me if
That's exactly my understanding.
Well, the charter also was about the our buildings. To look into our buildings, and in their report, they only stated the 12 schools, not all of our buildings, because we wanted, if this is a enrollment and feasibility and like what do we need to do with our property. We always hear about the Danby building and all. We have Hancock Street, our tech, and they didn't state anything in that report about that. So whole analysis. And since you mentioned meeting with them regularly, the timeline too, I wanted to know more about what were they, did you meet with them regularly, that there was check-in of what the scope of work, what we had asked for? Because I didn't see in the 27 or whatever number of pages on that report that it actually identified and matched up back to the scope of work, what that output was supposed to be.
Well, they did do interim check-ins, and they kind of asked the issue of LACS, and correct me if my memory is wrong, is that I think the ICSD team said to them that there's really no way to forecast enrollment at LACS when it's not a function of demography, but a function of the board's policy.
And we're having two different conversations. There's
Right.
the facilities question and conversation, and then there's the demography. And from my perspective, there are gaps in what they presented and shared with the board. And doing the interim checks that I was present in, we did illuminate those gaps that we were seeing at the time. So the final report still had those same gaps. So again, I'm asking if there are gaps that we want them to fill, let's put those on the table. And I have some I'm thinking about already, including the facilities, including the 15 years, and there's others. We will direct them to bring that back to us as an amendment or in addition to what they presented to this point. Because I think it's insufficient or incomplete at this point from my perspective.
I have multiple things. You know, they listed transportation, but there was no breakdown really of what it would look like with transportation. And I would like a breakdown of transportation based on savings of each factor, you know, each option that we would offer or consider. The other thing are, you know, there's facilities, and he did reference, you know, the facilities and maintenance of specific schools, but like the minutia of staffing. So there's facilities staffing that you'd have to consider, like maintenance of grounds, snow removal, all of those things, like really small things that add up. The other thing is, you know, on multiple levels with staffing, and I want to preface this by saying, you know, we have teacher shortages and educator shortages. So in no way is this, if we explore this option, is it saying, oh, we're going to reduce staff? This is really like we are going to utilize who we have and really bolster our staff. So like the idea of having the middle schools be fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. What would that look like in cost savings for staff, like across the board, when we think about the community-based classroom and the services that were really co-teaching models and all of those things are expensive. So what are the cost savings that we would have by having those in, having 2 consolidated middle schools and moving a 5th grade to 1? Same goes for lesser schools. I'm thinking about energy costs by not having extra schools running. How much does it pay? The cooling and the capital projects that we're considering with some of these places. And I can't remember where we're at with that, but we're looking to make sure we have proper I don't want to call it air conditioning, whatever cooling systems, right, with climate change in every school and proper temperature control in every school. And so there's breakdowns of costs that were very glossed over, that I think that could be substantial when we're looking at this and making these considerations.
Did they take that stuff into account and then for the presentation purposes, just kind of consolidate that information? Like, does it get more granular? I mean, I would think they would have had to in order to come up with the numbers that they did for the saving, right? They would have used those as the variables.
They did, and Zach, I'm gonna invite you to jump in if you remember, but they took the information on building inventory from Tetra Tech. So basically, I'm just forgive me here. This is a lot of information I'm trying to, but Tetra Tech did basically a data dump on building condition. So it was it's not my area, but there's all the buildings and there's different levels of maintenance and so on. So there's sort of an integration of the demographic information with the building survey data. And I think then, one other piece of it that I know we want to integrate is also what would be the market value of the buildings.
Yes.
So I think those 3 pieces still need to come together, and we're just not there yet. Maybe this was the wrong decision, but for a first in a short presentation, at least just speaking for myself, I thought was most appropriate information to put before the board was for me what was the big new information, which was the change in enrollment. The other information, while important, at least my advice to them, and I was just one of several people there, was to really emphasize to what I think was the key takeaway, which is the change in enrollment.
Yeah. As that rationale is really helpful, right? Because it was certainly new to me that we're going to be that much smaller. As I was listening to what Aaron said, I feel like a challenge is that we have this demographic enrollment. I guess we have this from Cornell, right? They're addressing that, but then it's impossible to actually make informed decisions without also having similar attention to the budget question, right? Of like, what will our expenses look like that far out, as well as the policy questions, which include both policies around ACS, the missing school, and open enrollment. So I feel like there must be some way forward where we have like these 3 tracks, because Cornell is not actually well situated to give us information, I think, on budget and policy. But we're not going to be able to do anything with enrollment information without considering it.
Yeah, so again, just me speaking here, now this is just my personal opinion. What the group of Cornell's expertise is in predicting populations.
Right.
So I personally was most interested in how many kids are there going to be. When we start, and it's great to pour in market valuation of buildings, and it's great to pour in Tetra Tech's information on building survey, but on building conditions. But that's really not Cornell's expertise, and in some sense, that's our expertise. And I'll just point out as an example. There's no secret here. We're going to have fewer students, so we're going to probably have fewer spaces. And I see that as an opportunity to have better spaces. So my interest is in better buildings, better facilities, better resources for kids. But in order to do that, it probably means some construction and some changing of infrastructure and so on. And there's where we get to the really complicated arena of school finance, and that's where we need fiscal advisors to tell us. So there are again, I'm kind of getting on my wheelhouse here, that's what we have fiscal advisors, but there are better and worse ways to adjust our capital, to accommodate the future number of students we have with the best possible facilities. And so I think really it's more important to take the information and then go to fiscal advisors and say, what's the best way to do this? But again, I invite others to, it's just my opinion.
To that, Garrett, I would love to see comps because, and I say this also acknowledging that as a board, we love and embrace, well, or as a board member, sorry, y'all. Like neighborhood schools are so beautifully important to communities, so I preface that with that. But I think as a board, we also need to do our, it's our fiscal responsibility, and I would really like to see comps of what when school districts consolidate schools to build a new school, they do that because it is the fiscally responsible thing to do. And so what are some comps that we can look at while we're doing this to have some picture of what that means in comparison to another school district in a similar circumstance who might have done that?
And there's all sorts of there's more of a trend around school districts in the country right now to even consider things like a building where you have kindergartners, right? Or a building for K-1, a building for 2 and 3. So I am not necessarily in favor of that model, just highlighting, but I'm curious how other districts of similar sizes have sorts of options that are in front of them within the next decade.
I guess I would just add that what I keep thinking about is very, I guess, just philosophical in nature in terms of, practical too. What criteria we're going to be using to make any decisions going forward with the data that we have, whether it's fiscal, whether it's environmental, whether it's structural, whether it's about vibes of neighborhoods. And I just think we're gonna have to be, put a lot of time and energy in as a board to sort of publicly discuss the lens to which we're gonna see this. And then how we're gonna actually go about making the decisions, because any group of people can come up with 10,000 ways to make decisions based on the data. So I'm actually mostly curious about that process and how we're gonna do that, and the justification for whatever lens that we're gonna choose, not to make it too heady and philosophical, but I feel like that's what we're gonna really be having to do, because anybody could decide things differently. So I just think some conversations are gonna have to go into like, how are we rating our criteria? How are we prioritizing things? Which things are we prioritizing? How are we making the determination about the priorities? That's all I'm saying.
I think part of that's going to connect with also the next item around strategic planning RFP, because given the significant enrollment drop that we can anticipate, that will probably need to be a central part of a strategic plan, especially financially.
It's true.
I just want to acknowledge that I've never seen anyone hold their hand up as long as Shireen. I mean, I'm not alone. I don't know.
You've never taught them, Tom.
No, I have not. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys are open to hearing, but from students, something to say. I know it's Robert's rules, so we're not supposed to, but Sean's not here to slap my hand, so I don't know. I'd like to hear what you want to say if I'm okay with that.
Heard of Mr. Fox on this?
Okay, yeah, well, I was a little sore, but when we were reading over this report, again, we had the same concerns about LACS not being featured. We're concerned that it wasn't there, but anyways, page 11 of the actual report featuring the number of students that is assumed for peak capacity being around 18 to 20. So there, like the peak number, kind of where you get the underutilization number from. We had some concerns or rather, I guess I'll speak for myself. I had some personal concerns on if that's actually the number that we want in our classrooms to begin with. Do we want bigger classrooms like that? Do we want to? And that's coming from a student of a small school. I know you guys probably have bigger classes than we do, but just step zero, first considering, do we want classrooms that are this size? Do we want smaller? And then seeing how utilization falls from there. That was our concern.
So I can just, LACS had explained that was considered a program, not not a demographic issue. What you saw there on sort of space and financial implications was really a back of the envelope, just trying to allow this board to have some sense of what would be the impact of 1,000 fewer students on the existing capital stock. Everyone recognizes that a heuristic like X number of students for Y rooms completely masks over, well, at this school or that school, that room's being used for this reason. That we don't pretend to know that, but just to give us sort of a back of the envelope understanding of what are the lower bounds and upper bounds on potential space allocations, and then you start looking at the quality of the buildings, what buildings are in what state right now, and then you look at fiscal advisors, what is the state aid that we're eligible to receive, and then you pull all that together. And I think, Adam, to your point, what are the objectives? I mean, just for me, the objective is very clear, is to get the best quality instructional space available for our students and our teachers and our staff, at the best value possible. I think it's up for the board to discuss the process of how we arrive there, but to me, where we want to arrive is pretty clear. We want the best instructional space possible, at least to me, my opinion.
So the next steps, do we provide feedback or questions that we have further?
My team and I have been capturing the questions that have been asked, and we want to document this and share it with the folks who are conducting the study now. And as they said when they were here, there are limitations to their expertise and their study, so they may not be able to answer them all, but that will inform the next study that I anticipate coming. As I said on the radio this morning when I was asked about this from my perspective is the first of many conversations about this complex issue. Having been through this process in other communities, Dr. Grant-Weiss, what you said resonated. The process is always more important than the final decision. And if we have a good one, it'll be the best one that I've ever seen, because most places it doesn't go well. So the process is going to be important, and having conversations there on many occasions is going to be important from my perspective. And we'll get some of these questions answered throughout the process.
So you were on the radio today, is that the same WHCUH?
Yeah.
The one that
yeah, Dr. Brown was on last time. Yeah. And yeah, some of the comments, I think they were waiting for us to say something different. Everyone's looking for a decision, and these are conversations being informed by data and studies. And I think that's appropriate for boards and us to be engaging in that, but no decisions have been made.
So I'd like to encourage the community to listen to those radio programs, because you could always go back historically so that we're hearing directly from our board president, we're hearing directly from our superintendent, as well as the conversation that we have here, that you're hearing directly from the board members speaking about this, and knowing that it's information at this time, and we're in this together, knowing that we have not made a final decision. And that's way down.
Adam, what you said about sort of what is, I guess, like our vision, our values, etc., resonated with me. I'm curious, Dr. Brown, when you talk about how it resonated with you, are there particular steps that a board took to arrive at sort of a collective, here is our approach, outside of the purely financial, more about like a value or?
From what I've seen, again, I will underscore, I haven't seen any of these go well. They tend to be contentious. They tend to flip boards, and superintendents lose their jobs. So I can say that at this point in my tenure, having watched it for the last 30 years and having gone through it. And when it has started well, is when it's connected to a strategic planning process, and it's an inclusive process that I'm hearing this board wants to engage in. That's informed by data and demography studies. When it doesn't go well is when there are unilateral decisions, and when it's done inequitably, or it's done without thinking about the overall financial picture for the organization and the community, or when there's no plan for that aspect that we move away from, or a plan for increasing improving the instructional spaces. It's just been seen as a deficit more so than an abundance model. So we'll talk more about that. And I'm sure I'll be, as a superintendent or living here as a community member, going through it, because as we look at the numbers, we're going to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Strikes me, if there's not an objection to colleagues, as a good segue to item 10.3. So I believe we have a draft RFP. Again, let me just take a moment for the public. So there has been interest on the part of the board in engaging in a long-term strategic planning process. One proposed approach for that process is to put out a RFP, request for proposals, to bring in outside experts to guide us in that process, which would probably be a multi-year process. We have a draft of such an RFP, and that is on, if you want to download that at home, that is on the agenda. People can download that, take a look. But like I said, I invite board members, having reviewed the document, to comment on what they like and don't like, or want to see more of or less of.
This one question I had is, how long, will the proposal period be open once we decide to move forward? Like, how long will people have to submit proposals? Just a question. I mean, I know we're not there yet.
It's what were your suggestions?
I don't know. I'm not so sure. I've never put out one of these before. But I guess it would be good to maybe give people a scope of how much time they have to prepare it, just so if anybody wants to. It's very incidental, but just something for consideration.
So, no, I don't know how it will play out for this one. I hope I can speak on the demography study that there are groups that specialize in doing this, and for the demography study, in response to the RFP, we had a number of proposals that were clearly organizations that do this over and over and over again. And kind of, to me at least, the proposals kind of read of, there was sort of a standard proposal, and then there was kind of a search and replace, and district got replaced by ICSD. And then ultimately the proposal that we ended up going with was very different, because it was a local organization. So it differed from the ones that were mostly national or state organizations. I don't know how this is going to play.
Definitely backwards math, like when do we want this done completely, and then back into how long we want to open it up. Because I mean, folks are seeking business. It can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days, or 3 months, depending on how much time we want the scope of work that they put.
Are the people who are going to respond? Is it similar to the demography study? Are there going to be groups that do this?
Individuals, groups,
that
put it out.
Kind of have proposals, will have a model that they follow, or a template that they follow routinely to customize for us?
I'll anticipate there'll be a range of that.
Okay.
And we have in here that we're looking for folks who have experiences. So
then the definition.
What are the channels that you share the RFP?
It's Mr. Lisi and Zach here. There are multiple channels. I don't know the technical names. Our website is the primary one. Then we send it out to our
like listservs for different industry groups, particularly in New York State. States trying to fund it.
So not like some states, Maryland's one, where you have to send it to a state portal, and that's the only place you can send it. We can send it in multiple lists.
I would like to suggest an addition, perhaps under number 2. So ICSD affirms its commitment to universal design for reading and learning, which goes beyond accessibility, but we could also say accessibility, and that's make sure that's inclusive.
I'm a big fan of UDL. I'm just curious, is that an affirmation that the district has made previously?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think we've ever included it in our language, but I defer.
I've never seen it in formal language like this, no.
Well, then I'm not sure where we should add it, and I would defer to, honestly, to you, Dr. Brown, to suggest putting it up top to have it be. I'm not sure, but I mean, we have never formally put it in our language, but I think that we should consider using stronger language than just accessible.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what the appropriate venue is to. Yeah, because I think it is a commitment that the district should have. I'm just not sure if then this is the right place to put it if it's not a stated commitment already. But maybe that could be part of the strategic planning process, like how can we move in that direction?
And it's accessibility isn't stated.
It's not, no, I think it needs to be in here, because I think whoever's doing the RFP, it needs to be a consideration to understand that. Sure, it's not, I mean, we're about to start addressing it heavily, and it's in our next resolution if we pass it. But whoever is doing this RFP, we want to make sure, you know, that's a consideration. So I don't write RFPs, y'all. I'm not sure where to put it.
Let's be clear,
It's not in my scope of.
suggestion too, this is not a policy. So this language is something to get people to think about. And it can be something that we can use when considering the different folks who are responders. So it can go in here and not be a part of the district policy or overall statement.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Again, similar to Aaron, I do not write RFPs. I'm curious if it should be, if we should. Given the conversation we just had about enrollment, if we should put specifically in there that we are or firms or individuals or whoever that like had experience with and are attentive to
Who can
not necessarily, yeah,
redistricting and consolidating.
you just, yeah. Because that actually, because it feels like that is the area that we know the least amount perhaps, and that is the most pressing. Or not, it's not pressing, it's not timely pressing, it's just we want to make sure that we're getting good outside counsel on that.
Well, there might be some accessibility language in here, so it's just for us to look at it. Because even in the executive summary done, like required deliverables, executive summary and community facing materials, accessible, multilingual, ready formats, so we may have some things, so.
How about this? I'll read through it at another point and not workshop it here in meeting, so we can all get out of here at a reasonable hour. Because I think there needs to be stronger words than access. I think that's just, it needs to be more intentional, so.
And then I guess since this is a draft version, we're looking at the content of it. And once it's been finalized and we're okay with this, since it was a board request that we do the strategic planning, then it'll have like the timeline and deliverables when they expect to submit, because I believe with the prior one, the enrollment and demographic one, it was like over a 3-month period.
To get a purchase spring.
A suggestion too, as we think about timing and timelines, we're going into a budget development process and a conversation about capital project potentially, which will require a significant amount of time from you and us and the community to come to those meetings. This strategic planning process also requires time and meetings and community members come out. So if we're thinking about a timeline, you may want to think about, is this something we do in the fall or the summer, or do we try to get it all in this spring, which can be a truncated schedule from my perspective. So just some thoughts as we think about that day.
I can't necessarily speak to the difference between summer and spring, but I just recall that like when we were at NISBA, like with the strategic planning conversations, my big takeaway, and Emily, you know, feel free to agree, disagree, was that strategic planning can be like the process of getting it started can be relatively quick. And that has been beneficial because then school boards just have clear direction, and then I think just everyone's rowing the same way. It's something I've really been looking forward to us have a strategic plan that we're then checking on and implementing. Your thoughts?
I agree.
But I'd like to know which school districts had it, whether the small ones or larger ones, so quick turnaround. So let's not just have it quick and rush through, knowing that we are entering into budget season, which we stated about having community conversations. And with our capital project, we have a finance facilities committee meeting this Thursday, and things are,
Moving and grooving.
I don't know about grooving, but they're moving.
I think quickly getting to it, but not quickly coming to the
Yeah,
conclusion. Thoughtfully proceeding, but with urgency. Yeah, how about that?
we didn't bother talking to super small districts. Sort of a joke, sort of.
So we're gonna put this on the next agenda to continue this conversation. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Are there any asks or requests of us? Looking at calendar, recommendations on timeline, if there are, just send us a note, we'll work on that.
What, I mean, what is the final step for the RFP to go out?
Just the board, like we did the last one, you finalize the draft, you'll send it out, that's not.
So is it fair, like, so then is our intended goal to send it out? Like to look at it for sort of a final review next week, or we think something here?
Whatever you want.
It's not whatever I want.
But to the board, I mean, you as in plural, you, is whatever we want, man. I mean, we decide that. There's no, unlike the budget, let me rephrase that. Okay, unlike a capital campaign, or unlike a budget, there is not a, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no state timeline on when an RFP for a strategic plan goes out. So we can do it as fast or as slow as we want.
I think that's the way to rephrase it on the next agenda, so if we want to put a motion for it, but actually approving it, then we can put that motion forth, and maybe it doesn't pass if people have too many additional questions, but I think that would be the role to make it actionable.
For what it's worth, I think you and your team put together a strong RFP, that's like taking notes on some of the things we discussed, and so I have every confidence that within 2 weeks we could have a voting item to then move forward. And I would encourage that to happen.
That sounds like a good plan.
Can you just clarify one piece for me, when you're talking about the timeline, or the way that the timeline is referenced in here, and inviting respondents to indicate the timeline, there's also a place where where there's like a bright spot, or we.
Let me clarify, we can dictate the timeline, and they can respond to meeting that timeline demand or not. They may, once they get in here, may suggest altering the timeline, but I think we should put some things in first.
Okay, you think we should put a timeline in first? So
That's
that we definitely need to discuss this
Yeah,
as the next one.
yeah. Cool. I'll give you some suggestions.
Thank you for doing the work, I'm looking forward. Thanks.
All right, so we good to move 10.4? All right, so 10.4 is a resolution to establish an accessory advisory council. Dr. Kramer.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the resolution for the establishment of an accessibility advisory council.
Second, that was very well read, Dr.
Thank you so much.
All right, so moved by Dr. Kramer, seconded by Mr. Schifrin. Discussion.
So we as a board can set up and establish advisory councils, knowing that board members will participate on such advisory councils, as well as staff and community members. Have we identified or have an idea, or do we just vote on it and go away and task the superintendent, or is it the board initiative?
Just so I'm clear, the council is comprised just of board members, or?
No.
Okay.
Because we have to work with staff.
Okay, thank you.
And then you could always have community members on the council too.
And students have also expressed interest, so I think when setting this particular one up, we can collaborate and figure out a time that is accessible, so it has the most feedback in a meaningful way, where the voices who need to be heard can all do that. So that will be intentional as we get this up and running.
So to just repeat Karen's question, do we need to have commitment from at least one board member that they will participate before we approve the establishment of it?
Can we? I mean, if no one's interested, then we should pass the resolution, but I don't think that's gonna be the case.
I mean, that's
You know,
my resolution. I'm clearly gonna be doing work on this. So, I mean, if we wanna do a friendly amendment to put that wording in, and this is where I always rely on Sean for his institutional knowledge on how to properly do this, but I mean, I'm committed to moving this this council forward. So there's that, and other board members who would like to be interested are who are interested are more than welcome to join me.
I don't think that we need to make any.
No, I think
that's just
the knowledge that we
here.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there'll be plenty of interest.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to move the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
All in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay, very good. So, draft academic calendar 2026, 2027. We have a draft in front of us. Ms. Glover, is anybody gonna walk us through this?
Hey everyone, good evening. Great, so we have a draft calendar for 26-27 school year. I want to thank a number of stakeholders who've given some input into it, and what I would say was a great collaboration also with our teachers union, who sent some feedback and some pointers to keep in mind. And then also I keep a ongoing list of input that we receive from caregivers and students throughout the year via Let's Talk. And because some of these decisions we can only make but once a year. And so please know that this calendar reflects some of that input as well. So shall I go through some of the big points, or do you want to start with initial questions that you have?
Just you walk us through the highlights of.
All right,
Wanna
so
make
the
sure the board's aware?
highlights, we get to have students for 180 days, staff work 186. We approve and with intention are putting this before you after our regional calendar has been voted on and approved by our local TST BOCES, so that students do not miss program. And we are in sync with programming for students who attend BOCES. We also are mindful of conference days and professional development days that we're trying to stay in sync with the region. For example, this upcoming March 19th, we have a regional conference day. So districts within our TST BOCES region will be hosting different professional development, and we will be hosting some. And so that this calendar reflects similar days to allow us for that partnership. We also heard feedback on breaks. Now, one piece of feedback I routinely get is, can we align our breaks to universities in the region? And this version does not reflect that. That is not something we're able to accommodate, unfortunately. The breaks are different for both institutions, and they're not in sync with BOCES programming for our students. So I want to name that. You'll also see that another question we get is, can we start before Labor Day? No, we can't. That's New York State law. Classes have to start after Labor Day. Labor Day falls late this year. So everything gets pushed. So you'll see one shift that staff will come back on the 1st to hit their 186 staff days, and we will end June 25th. That is the highlight reel.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have two questions, a small and a large. My small question is, December 23rd is a half day. Speak to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Why?
So it's a half day for students. So one request we get a lot is around travel, families traveling. And so we have a full day for staff that day, with students releasing at a half day.
I mean, why not have that day off as opposed to a half day?
We wouldn't hit 180 days with kids.
We had 170. How does it work? Because I see all full days and then one half day. So how does it?
Yeah, so as long as we're feeding students breakfast and lunch, that we can count that as a day of instruction through New York State. So there's both a day count and there's a minute count as well. So we're always balancing those two. So having a half day that day for students hits the 180-day student day.
Okay, so it counts as a full day, even though it's just a partial day.
Yeah, and that happens with, so this calendar allows for emergency closing days. And if we have a delay, we don't use an emergency closing day. So it's similar to, that's a good question.
Okay. And then my big question, sorry, everybody, but I'm curious to know the process by which it's determined which holidays are off and which holidays are not off. I know it's a very big question. I know there's could be groans, and I know it's something that's been discussed for many years. But I get a lot of questions about that, like, especially, and when you look at different calendars, like if you look at the New York City calendar, just different calendars that lots of districts do different things. And, looking over these, days that we have off, I'm sort of noticing like, oh, that's that holiday, that's that holiday. I know it's not marked on the calendar, specific holidays, but they do correspond. So that's my question.
Yeah, and we will have a day, what you don't have that will go out is a day of significant holidays that will be on the backside of the calendar. So the reason you see differences across school districts is there is some New York State legislation that if you hit a certain number of population of students celebrating that, you have to get that day off.
Right.
Which in our area, hitting that count for certain holidays is unlikely. We also have to balance hitting the 180-day student count as well as the minute count. And in this case, we're working as a region. As a region, what are the days that we're going to continue to give off? What's been added thanks to case studies that students have put forward? Some of the changes that we've had to our calendar are thanks to the work of our educators and engaging students on that and hearing from students. And I recognize we have not accommodated all holidays. And what we can do is be intentional with notices so educators know, all right, we have a holiday, a significantly religious day coming up. And be mindful of that, which educators are thinking about, we have just work assignment and needs of students in that regard. So that's what we can do.
Sure, and it's hard to accommodate all holidays. I think the rationale, is important that people are curious, like, well, why did this happen and not that one? Okay. Yeah. Those were and we just in other years we've had students come and say sort of like, I celebrate this holiday, it's not on the calendar.
Absolutely.
To be able to have a justification, say why.
And I think having that on the calendar is really important too, just for shared awareness.
Oh yeah.
It's not.
And it was a result of a group of students who requested, and I think elementary age, to put some of the holidays on the calendar.
It was a collaboration between elementary and secondary students, which was wonderful.
A few years ago, a student came to the board meeting and requested the Diwali holiday to be put a time off. Now, the governor of New York State, who's still the same governor now, had stated in New York City there's a larger population there, so they have off that day, but not here. So as you stated, the population depends on it too.
Growing up in the FNC school district, it always frustrated me, not so much that we didn't have holidays off, like for a number of Jewish holidays, although we didn't. But that there were rewards and penalties given based on attendance. So I remember I was always at school, but like I wasn't there on Yom Kippur, and like as a result, it was sort of like this, well, then you can't get, which is, in retrospect, I don't care that much about a perfect attendance award, but like. But it mattered, but it mattered, but it mattered as a kid to like not be seen in that way. And so
Right.
personally, and as a parent and caregiver, I have also experienced in the Ithaca City School District that feeling of, oh my gosh, I can't actually, like my kids can't be home this much. like as a working parent. And so I just want to name, I appreciate the recognition of holidays on the calendar, whether or not school is necessarily dismissed for all students. I am curious, I'm just curious, are there what differences are there between this calendar and last year's calendar that I might not notice?
All right, there's one difference great question. There's one difference for teachers. And that is that the 4th traditionally is not a staff work day, that Friday before Labor Day. And in collaboration, we chose to make that a work day because otherwise June 28th, the trade would be going to June 28th for a work day.
Oh, interesting.
Because of how Labor Day falls, yeah.
And also because for the vast majority of educators, that Friday is still a work day anyway, so people are already in their rooms. Some people go away, but rather than going into the 28th, it makes more sense. Mary, the caregiver conference days, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that DeWitt and Boynton had a full day and now they're back to a half day. What's going on?
Right, and they're back to a half day to make instructional minutes.
Okay, because I know those are beneficial. It's like
Exactly. Actually, I'm really glad you asked that because it's good to point that out because it would be wonderful to have a full day, but having a full day and making instructional minutes is challenging. We need to get to the 180-day count as well, while honoring the holidays that some of which we are required to, and some we have chosen to due to student advocacy. So what I would remind families about the half-day conferences for secondary students is that using and connecting with their teams at the school, because at Boynton and DeWitt, there are team times. And then the LACS has a practice of having the conferences during Regents Week. So that's why you don't see LACS on those half-day conferences.
So are you saying that meeting with the teams will save time, or you're saying that's if they want to?
No, if they want to connect with, like, in their schedule, there's a structure for caregivers to be able to meet with all
So
the
they
kids.
couldn't do it on that half day.
Right, if they couldn't be accommodated on that half day, or didn't want to wait till that half day. So we chose to have the caregiver conference days in November prior to Thanksgiving break. Because in hopes for strong attendance and not increased attendance and not butting it up to the Thanksgiving holiday break, given travel plans that many folks have.
Can I ask? I'm going to ask them a question.
Go, great.
At the start of the year, you have teacher work days like set aside for teachers to be able to set up their classrooms. At the end of the year, the final days, like the final day for both students and teachers. Has there ever been a discussion about how to support teachers in that time that they really need to be taking part of their classrooms again or closing out the year?
Yeah, so it's an intense time of year, and teachers are pretty strategic in not packing up while they're still teaching. That creates anxiety, and so it's a challenge. And the reality is, teachers work outside of the times listed here to both come in the summer, you know, I remember as a principal in the summer, I was not alone in the building. People were coming in, and at the end, when school ends, teachers are also gonna be in their rooms, and you know, a shout out to the custodial staff who manage people coming in and out as they're trying to clean and wax floors.
Regarding conferences, I'm curious in the school district, do we track, like, for example, percent of parents or like families that,
Yeah, we do,
And so-
yeah.
and so, yeah, cause I know like I've seen different approaches, right? Like
Oh.
no school and then conferences in the evening, flexible times. I just wanna make sure that the approach of the half day and the no school, that giving us the results we want,
Mhm.
caregivers able to attend conferences.
Well, are you asking, I think it's, again, the way in which caregivers reach out to grade level teams at the middle school is a different model than your child having the same teacher all day long. So when I answer that specifically in the elementary building, we have a whole micro credential on family engagement that looks at how are we tracking this, who's attending, and why, what's helpful to make sure that caregivers have access and given their workday, what they're balancing.
So if a caregiver cannot attend during that day, or like alternates are available, or?
In my experience, educators have been very accommodating and fitting in times for families. And sometimes too, there might be a scenario where they want someone else to join the conference, and so that, you know, there's a unique scheduling that they're going to be flexible about.
Yeah, and that's been my
Yeah.
experience too. I just wanted
Yeah.
to pose the question. And Regents exams are then, like, students are taking Regents on the last day of the
So we'll know the exact region schedule for next year. They give a window. I believe it's posted, yeah. So typically, yeah, the regencies that fall towards the end are not necessarily what you would anticipate an upper level 11th or 12th grader to be taking per graduation requirements.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Larry.
We'll look forward to more feedback.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Let's start this open. Back to Brown.
So, Ms. Grover, so we have no action items on that, it raises to 10.6. School policy 5601, lunch.
Okay, I'll move to approve policy 5601, school lunch for first reading.
Second. I'm sorry. Okay.
Emily, I don't know how to interpret that.
Shall I unmove? So,
Just the first reading.
So the recommendation from the policy committee is that we move this straight to a second reading and adoption, assuming that we can get a majority vote. But I don't,
But did we have a first reader?
no, but if we have a majority vote, then we can move straight to a second reading if I can convince you to do that.
I feel like I was at the meeting where this was discussed and it sounded like the policy was just being rewritten to address the practice that's already happening.
Yes, exactly. It's a very short couple line policy. It really is just saying that the Board of Education is like supports the commitment of the district to utilize the federal lunch and breakfast program. The way that it was phrased previously, for some reason only spoke about DeWitt and Boynton, and now is speaking about the district as a whole. Again, that was one of the like 1974 policies that just didn't make sense, it was outdated. We had Beth Kraus, the director of nutritional service, what is it? Food services, thank you. Come and speak with us and make sure that like the information that that is in there is fully up to date. I think that it's like so simplistic that we almost don't need it. But what it does is just kind of like cover ourselves and showing our commitment to doing that. So we as the policy committee would recommend moving it straight to the second reading.
So Dr. Carnes, you want to withdraw your?
I will withdraw / modify my
We'll
motion,
modify
and
that.
I will now move to approve policy 5601 school lunch for a second reading and adoption.
Second.
All right, moved by Dr. Trentwise. Seconded by Mr. Schifrin. Is there any further discussion? If not, roll Emily. What you're doing here, right?
I mean, I'm a little nervous about it. Yeah, I think it's great.
Like lying shoulders.
Yeah, 'cause-
I mean, I'm saying yes, you
You
don't
want to
know.
lunch, you know?
No,
It is a heavy topic.
I better not regret this, but.
I know.
But it's on each board membership. Because he will be voting,
This
you know,
is all
so,
Emily.
you know what I mean?
Carrying the
We got a
board
meeting, we
tonight.
have a meeting conversation about it.
Yeah, Megan, break this down. So it's where the headline is.
I got it.
You have
Get
any
ready, coming up
trepidation?
tonight.
There's no pressure to vote for this.
Okay, if there are no further puns, then question. All those in favor? Is that unanimous? Okay, so we motion.
I want my $20 now.
The motion carried unanimously, and so now we move to committee updates. We'll skip audit because professor is not here. In the order presented, we go to curriculum.
Great. Happy to talk to us about the curriculum committee. In our last meeting, we learned a little bit about the middle school approach to literacy. I'm particularly excited that Mary and her team, teachers, have been really intentional about evidence-based practices in literacy and creating more of a common and shared experience for the students at Boynton and DeWitt. Both in terms of the instruction they receive, but also the assessments that they take, how we're like monitoring progress. We're going to be doing some instructional rounds tomorrow for those of us who can attend. We're going to try to attend as many of them as possible. There's also a listening circle with some of the middle school ELA teachers. That has been confirmed, very sensitive out to the. And then in a future meeting, and this I think merits a conversation on the board. We are hoping to discuss more around, it's come up in multiple committee meetings, for like the importance to align budget priorities and support coaching development of teachers to sort of like meet the demands of what's being expected of them, right? And so we hope to address that in our next committee meeting, where Barry's going to be speaking to us about sort of like budget implications, not even necessarily budget implications, but just like a cycle of curriculum adoption at different levels and what that means. And like say the first year of teachers implementing a science program versus the second versus the third. And so she's going to present on that, which at least for me raises the question of how is the board, given the disparate nature of committees, we sort of align our efforts to go, well, this is the thing that's happening. The adoption of curriculum on a 5-year cycle with every year potentially being new adoptions or re-adoptions. How do we make sure that there is the funding and the support to do it really, really well? I'm not sure, Mary Catherine, I see maybe nodding, maybe, so I see vigorous nodding. Okay, great. So I'd love to pose that question to the board. Again, I'm reflecting on Sean's push around around committees in the last meeting. And realizing if a major part of our role as a board is the creation and approval of a budget. I feel like perhaps there should be more whole board discussions around the priorities for said budget. And how to make sure that the budget isn't just, is both the big chunk of money that of course is gonna go in a lot of directions, but also can be targeted towards the initiatives that are happening. That's my update, and then I post the question.
So you're stating that, for budget discussion, there should be more around priorities.
Yeah, or that perhaps more budget conversations should be full board conversations.
Right, and which has happened, and that's why I was wondering if you were disputing that there were not prior discussion around priorities, because in the finance committee, they discuss budget priorities, and then it moves on to the whole board for further discussion or.
I haven't experienced that yet,
Okay.
so are you saying that that is what will happen?
That usually happens, so I'm just saying, if you haven't experienced it yet, hopefully you're not stating that it has not happened.
No, I'm stating that so far, and I of course just have that, that creeping sensation of things, when will different things happen? If as a curriculum committee, we're having these conversations with the instructional arm, right, around like what's happening. I don't currently see a place, time, method where there would be communication between what's happening on the finance committee and what's happening in the curriculum. And if that does happen naturally over the course of February, March, April, fantastic. If not, I would love for us to make sure it does. And not to be left to the wild whims of myself and Dr. Blaylock. Just the other February committee.
And you mentioned about the listening circles and some meetings that are happening tomorrow.
But yes, instructional rounds and all this.
So can I make a request of curriculum as well as other committees? Anytime you're having any meetings or visits, just send an email out to the whole board just in case we would like to participate instead of hearing about it today, about tomorrow, when my schedule is full.
That is a great push. I apologize for not doing so and certainly will in the future.
I think it's fair to just use that as an opportunity, that I think that we need to be very cognizant of that with all committees. I think just even thinking about our meeting today, how little any of us knew about the meetings that had been happening with Cornell, and getting information about that report that no one else in the committee seemed to, or on the board seemed to even know that those meetings were happening or possible attendance. So I think that we need to be very consistent across all of the committees and all of the leadership levels, making sure that we are aware and that everyone who can participate is invited to do so.
Which made, again, goes back to the question that Sean shared weeks ago. So are we revisiting in 2 weeks, sort of like, what's the word? Not vision, charter for committees, and sort of like, is that on the agenda? Do I need to say that? Maybe. We were gonna revisit, like have each committee name their charter, so as a board, we could be clear on what exactly we are directing.
Or I thought when we discussed about charter, last month, we talked about doing that around a reorg meeting. Or going forward for next year.
Oh.
Committees.
I guess I interpreted it differently, because I felt like I was getting the message that like what we were doing in curriculum committee was outside of the scope of the work, which then goes, well, okay, so then what can we do, and then would the same problem be present with every committee? I would ask, like, for example, for the policy committee, great to see the cafeteria policy. I'd love to see the policy committee really focus on the student rep work, because I know that that's creeping up and inching, so.
Yeah, they are.
No, but like, for example, let's have a timeline around it, like we are time bound by the budget and. I don't know.
We can, I think,
It's 8:30.
I don't think that we made a lot
Yeah.
of decisions in that last
Okay.
conversation. I think we were kind of going in circles a little
Fair.
bit by the end.
Like I'm doing now.
No, you're being so eloquent. No, I think that we, it would be a huge kind of shift in the way that we work on committees. I don't think personally as one board member that we have like the capacity or time, especially going into budget season and other things, to really be thinking really deeply about that. So I guess I'm not making a decision right now, but I agree with Karen that I would love to see before next year us have a much more concrete way of approaching our committee work.
That's.
Okay, so next up is facilities and finance, that's me. So facilities, we are moving towards having a capital campaign proposal on the ballot in May. As I've informed my colleagues, I have a meeting with the OACM group and we're meeting with them again just Thursday morning. And we are working with communications team on an outreach based, in part on some suggestions by Ms. Yearwood about getting people with information sooner rather than later. So we were looking that we're gonna be hitting voters with a postcard going out sometime in early March with was it 4 to 6, I can't remember, town halls, at least 4 in both urban and rural locations. Along with a QR code in the postcard that would go to an FAQ. And also some video resources to explain some of the minutiae, the financial implications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That meeting will happen on Thursday, and then I will bring that information back to the full finance committee meeting that will occur later that day. To the facilities committee meeting that will come back later that day with finance. Which leads me to the finance agenda, which will be a budget, which will be on the same ballot at the same time.
Okay. So the OACM meeting changed yet again, it's this
No.
Thursday?
No, it's the same day I sent the update, I sent about a month ago. February 12th.
Thursday's the communication meeting.
OACM communication.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
oh, communication, not the month.
No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I was lost. Too.
No, there's.
Looking at my calendar like.
No, I'm sorry, there is a subgroup of the OACM group that is focused solely on
Just project communication.
Right.
communication, what the postcard should look like. So, and I think we'll be able to give an update to the full finance committee later that day. And that's just a Zoom, it's not a. Which leads us to HR.
We continue our work on district hiring practices. We invited Dr. Roberta Wallet to speak with us at our last meeting, who is a member of the Village at Ithaca, and more relatedly was a member of the EILC, the Equity and Inclusion Leadership Council, which was together a decade and a half ago. Yeah. Who had a significant role in kind of helping shape our current or the district's current hiring practices. That also means that they are about over a decade old now. And so we are looking at kind of exploring ways in which we can support the HR team in updating, streamlining, increasing the chances of hiring the best teachers and staff available, while also leaning into the grounding work that EILC did, which was to make sure that hiring practices are equitable. And so continue that work. Also had an opportunity to connect with both at the, what was that symposium called in the summer?
The diversity symposium.
The diversity symposium over the summer, and then again recently, there's a professor at Ithaca College. I'm sure I've mentioned her before. Dr. Felisa Gonzalez, who does a lot of this work. That I think I certainly am very interested in seeing if she can more deeply help us think about and update our hiring practices in a thoughtful way. We are in a period of time where we are having to pull to try to get even a few candidates to apply to positions, not just here, but across the country, and so we're in a very different place than we were a decade ago when we were able to pick and choose from a wide variety of options. So I think we need to update our practices accordingly. That's about it. I'm happy to do policy.
Please.
Unless you want to do policy. So the policy committee is working on a number of policies. We didn't get very many of them at all at our last meeting because we had all our students with us, but one of the big ones that we're focusing on is the student ex officio policy. Through our work on this school lunch policy, we have been able to review a couple of other school lunch wellness related policies. So we'll be coming to the board talking about a few of those probably at our next meeting. What else is working on the policy? We have drafted a first draft of a policy about naming facilities. That's come up a number of times recently, or in the last like 6-8 months, about community members or members of the district reaching out to us really interested in having a gymnasium or a building or something named after any influential community member. And so we are putting a policy in place to make it so that that's so that we can actually do that in a really thoughtful way. We pulled examples from a lot of other districts and found one in particular that we felt like really was thoughtful and wouldn't be too onerous. So we'll be bringing that to our first meeting relatively soon, probably. Dan, am I forgetting anything? I was going to talk about this.
Yeah, it'll come. We'll bring that to the next policy meeting. Yeah.
Any other policies?
Probably
it.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
There's some we're thinking about, but
Yeah.
we have to discuss them.
That's it. Yeah.
What?
Okay. So I think the last item is agenda setting. I would just add, not every topic, and not every detail of every report and every presentation can be forward every 2 weeks. So there is a role in agenda setting, and we set the agenda to try to be reasonable at time. And we solicit feedback from the board, and items that weren't heard that want to be heard will be heard at the next meeting. So it's gonna be clear that I heard all the feedback. I know there were some requests for more information on the demography study, some items that did not make the first presentation. There was a request for information, some of that information to be put on the later agenda. Information that didn't fit on the first agenda. So I've heard that, and then Mr. Schiffer, I think you had some other information. I'm just trying to
I think I've emailed that.
You've already emailed
Yeah,
that. Okay,
yeah.
so I heard that. Am I missing any other requests for agenda setting? Okay. If there's nothing else, then we'll bring me.
Thank you for facilitating.
Oh, yeah.